Welcome to the Reboot Chronicles, connecting you to the world's top leaders and CEOs rebooting their organizations and themselves with revealing stories to help you prosper in unprecedented times. I'm your host, Dean DeBias, and as a serial CEO who's led dozens of companies that created thousands of jobs and billions in revenue, my passion is uncovering powerful lessons that can inspire you to reboot your organization, your career, and your life. Listen and subscribe wherever you get podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com. Cybersecurity impacts all of us, from our organizations to our personal devices, with millions of attacks and trillions of dollars at risk. Even your company is likely to get hacked while listening to this episode. This is why we invited Jay Chaudhry to the Reboot Chronicles, and I also love his humble entrepreneurial spirit. Jay is the chairman and CEO of Zscaler, which he started on a card table in 2007. Looking to reboot old models, they built a cloud-based brand that now has 7,500 employees and is approaching $3 billion in annual revenue. Used by the world's top corporation, their Zero Trust Exchange is the largest inline cloud services platform. Distributed across 150 data centers, every day it prevents 9 billion incidents and policy violations with 500 trillion AI ML signals. And the list goes on. And they also drive 500 billion transactions every day. That's 20 times Google, last time I checked. Jay, it's good to see you.
Dean, thank you for having me.
It's always great to have a few entrepreneurs on the program that have turned their companies into multi-billion-dollar organizations and haven't lost their spirit, because you've been on a long, long journey, and in probably one of the toughest, or at least most fluid space. We've had cybersecurity people on, everything from the chief of staff of the DoD to the CEO of Cato Networks, and the one common theme there is like they've all been working on and attacking cyber threats for decades. It seems like, but it just, to me, it seems like it's just never ending. What is the state of the? I'll call it an industry right now, but let's just say the state of the threat.
Mm-hmm. So Dean, more and more business is happening online. We're all getting interconnected. And as more and more commerce and business happens online, bad guys want a piece of the action without working hard. So it's natural that threats are going up and up. Now, that's only one part of it. That's a ransomware type of it. They want to make too money. There's a second side, the nation states, who also want to steal your intellectual property to get ahead. Or they want to get into your infrastructure. They want to get into your critical infrastructure and the like. So in case of war, they got you. So these are some of the drivers that are driving the threat landscape. And it doesn't seem like it's ever going to slow down.
No. From a capitalist point of view, it's a great business to be in, I assume. You mentioned the nation states. So most people always mention China, Iran, Russia, North Korea, but it's not just them. I mean, they've always had different types of surveillance. Now it's cyber. I mean, that business alone must be massive, but from an arms dealer point of view.
It is. Sometimes it doesn't get talked about.
Yeah.
There's also things that go among friendly countries too, and they don't get talked about either.
So when you look at Zscaler, what's your approach? Why is it different? What's the state of this your combat right now, and how you've scaled it up?
Right. So before internet took off, there used to be physical security or security inside your data center, and generally those data center had IBM mainframes. As internet evolved, internet is a wild west out there, and with that, some of these attackers start to come from internet and attack your website and all that kind of stuff. So at that time, this was in early to mid-90s, the internet security was born, and that security was inside my data center, my castle, everything is good. Outside, everything is bad. So a firewall was invented as a moat around the castle of your data center. And in the last 30 years, nothing has changed fundamentally. They have been incrementally refined. The core security paradigm is still based on firewall and the identities and all that come around it. or a firewall is a piece. And the network, which is part of it. What happened starting in early 90s is we invented this TCP/IP network, so you could extend your data center to every branch office. It's like
Right.
extending your main castle to many mini castles with a tunnel that connects everything. The
And
problem is,
the moat is
yeah,
gone.
once you get inside the castle, you go everywhere, and the moat is useless. It's like trying to really defend your country when air force is out here, cannons are out here. Moat doesn't do anything. And all the security we have seen in the past 30 years is on this old moat-based, firewall-based VPN technology. When I started Zscaler in 2007, and that's early thinking, most of the work really got it done in 2008.
Sure.
I'm a lucky product of American Dream. I had fortunately done 4 companies, 4 startups. And luckily, I had failed to raise VC funding in the first startup. And that's where I was forced to use my life savings, where my wife supported me. So we went on and we built these companies. Now I wanted to do something big, something lasting, and say, what's a big challenge I can take? And we said, let's look at cyber in a different light. Let's not keep on building these firewalls when the moat, when the castle has become empty, and even users have gone to greener pastures. So we reimagined security, we reimagined the network, and the reimagination was you shouldn't build your corporate network. Internet should be your network, just like highway systems. And where are you going to put firewalls and VPNs in this mobile and cloud-centric world? Let's not go with firewalls. So Zscaler fundamentally built what we call Zero Trust Exchange. It's in layman's terminology, it's like a switchboard, literally like
Right.
a phone switchboard of old days. You come to us, we say, who are you? Where are you going? And if you're allowed, we connect to John and John only. So we connect a user to right application or right service after checking X number of things. Everyone is untrusted. No one is inside the moat. Everyone is outside. This is the zero trust model that needs to be embraced by more and more companies to fight off these bad guys.
Yeah, it's usually a trust model. I liked your flip of that word. Also, you're doing like service to the edge,
Mhm.
SSE. Most people, they don't want to know what all this means, but
Mhm.
essentially it's the companies like yours are trying to basically not just regulate, but to authorize access to the web, to all the different devices out there, applications you're using. And you don't realize it holding up a phone here. It's like every time you do that on your business phone or even your your personal phone from business, what you are going through. And so you basically said, we need to be able to authenticate anybody, anywhere, anytime, not just peer to
Yes.
peer, but everything.
Yes. Yes.
Hence the trillions of pings on your network.
Mhm. So what we do is take your typical employee sitting in a corporation. That employee needs to uh, access Salesforce, Office 365. Let's check
Exactly.
LinkedIn. How about a little news on BBC or whatever?
Yeah.
So we are like an international airport. You come in, we are checking your boarding pass, your passport, your visa, and luggage to make sure the right person gets on the right plane to the right destination with safe luggage. Now, what's a luggage in this case? It's attachments you send back and forth. Those attachments could have bad stuff in it, similar to luggage. So we are inspecting things to make sure fundamentally nothing bad comes and infects you and nothing good leaks out. Think of it, every bad thing comes from the internet, every good thing leaks to the internet. That's what we are doing to keep you safe at a simple level.
I I love your analogies. And by the way, those listening, he has an excellent video that explains this. It's not your typical corporate video where a CEO can actually walk you through it, and the visuals help. So, but it's funny. Your first analogy was about the castles and the moats, and some of the first hackers, they called them Trojan horses. The Trojan gets in. It could be from my email that I
Yep.
didn't, but I like the travel analogy too. The luggage or baggage that you bring to the table might not be as
Yes.
supportive to the corporate entity. A couple of things going on. So the proliferation of data centers. So you got the hyperscalers, the big dogs. Microsoft, Google, AWS, Oracle's trying to squeeze in, and then you have this whole other tier that is trying to provide not so much just cloud-based, but AI and high-performance computing. What has that done to your business?
So our business says the more application you have, the more people need to access those applications, the better it is for our business because we are the switchboard who talks to who. The proliferation of data centers is natural because so much data is being generated, so many applications are being written.
Right.
Every company has become a software company in some ways, right? Now, hyperscalers build their own thing, but there's so many other companies. They're looking for data centers. I don't think enterprises will have their own data centers down the road. The way I think of this computing business is everything starts as a cottage industry. And over time, it moves to professionally managed service. When I started Zscaler, I was thinking of power generators we used to have years and years ago in our home. We loved them because they're
Right.
much better than anything before them. And then power utilities came. You could plug into the wall socket, get power you need. It's a power utility service. Why shouldn't computing be a utility? These hyperscalers are giving you compute as a service. And Zscaler said, we'll give you security as a utility service. And the data center company you're talking about are basically saying, enterprises, don't build your own data center.
Right.
I can give you space, I can give you power, ping, and pipe. And that's a natural thing. And as AI is happening more and more compute is needed, and it's a good market.
Yeah, the supply and demand on the data centers is crazy because it's like they cannot build fast enough. And as you just pointed out, electricity is probably the next third rail to
Yes.
use a good pun. But AI and the impact of it is doing a couple of things. It's making it more complicated and more expensive, and you need more space and hardware and cooling and all that stuff.
Mhm.
But is AI impacting security in both a good way and a bad way? So we've talked about the bad ways on the show before. How's AI impacting it in a good way? In other words, companies like Zscaler being able to do things better on the security
Yeah.
side.
I like to say AI is wonderful and AI is dangerous. Okay. I'll give you one
I
simple
figure there's a
example.
war metaphor in here somewhere you're going to go to.
The next war metaphor is we need to fight AI with AI. Okay.
There you go.
And let me explain a little bit how. Okay.
Okay.
Before you were to launch an attack on a corporation and you had to collect information about all the firewalls, VPNs, and applications, it could take weeks and weeks. Now you can ask a simple question to ChatGPT. Say, give me all the firewalls and VPNs and application portals that have vulnerabilities and give it to me in a nice tabular format with a risk number associated with it. You can get it. Okay.
Wow.
Or you want to say, I want to send a phishing email that's using the kind of language my CFO writes. Please create one. Much easier. Now, how does AI help companies like Zscaler to do better protection? There are two aspects of AI. One is what I call traditional AI, or maybe call it predictive AI. You're looking at lots of data, machine learning. It can actually predict likely event. It's a statistical model base that has been used for several years by Zscaler to detect zero-day attacks and many, many other things. What's recent is generative AI that consumers can relate to. Predictive AI is very hard for an average person. Generative AI, when it can produce music for you, it can write stories for you, it can do all kinds of stuff out there. So everyone is very excited about it. And for business world, it offers lots of opportunities as well. Let me give you an example of how Zscaler uses AI. We got these 500 billion transaction logs every day. These logs are communication. Who is talking to who? What kind of IP to destination, good, bad, malware, botnets, phishing, all that kind of stuff. Now, using AI ML, especially machine learning, we're able to comb through all of that to find a needle in a haystack.
Right.
What's bad, malicious transactions hidden among all of these things? And then we further analyze it and we create a risk score of a company based on all these transactions. Say This company's risk score on a scale of 1 to 100 is 70, and other companies 80. So we can create actual score just like you have credit score for consumers. We can compare it against our peers. We can see the trend and the like, which is very powerful because every CIO, every CISO wants to understand the holistic risk rather than all these geeky security terms like phishing attacks and all that stuff. Then GenAI can read all of that stuff and can create a beautiful report that can be submitted to SEC.
Right.
SEC wants the disclosure of your risks and all that stuff. So this is a great example. We are using Gen AI and traditionally and many, many things. We are using it to figure out performance issues you may have. We have over 50 million users who go through a cloud every day. Now, you're sitting at home. Once in a while, you feel like, things are slow. Where are they slow? Is it your laptop? Is it your Wi-Fi? Is it the
Exactly.
internet somewhere? Or is the application? Zscaler collects all that telemetry for every user, and we can pinpoint the problem, and AI plays a very big role for us to figure that out.
You mentioned governance there, and you and I both run a lot of boards.
Mhm.
I wrote a article on agentive AI in Forbes a few weeks ago, and it caused a bit of a storm. And I've never had more, pings about what does this mean to us, and what advice would you give to corporate boards right now in the next, the second half of this decade? What should they be doing? Because right now they're very high level.
Mhm. In terms of cybersecurity or cyber risks,
Understanding the risk as it relates to AI and cybersecurity. Yeah.
yeah. Look, till about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, CISOs would often complain to me that they aren't getting enough attention and budgets.
That's true. They
Okay,
weren't.
okay, not anymore. Okay,
Not anymore. Now they have too
now
much attention.
now they claim now they are worried that they have to
But
present at every board meeting.
by the way, listeners, CISO's Chief Security Innovation Officer. So it's a company stuff.
All right. So, but no CIOs, board and CEOs all actually care about security because there have been so many high-profile attacks out there.
A lot of them
On
have
top,
committees now. Yeah.
yeah. Now, on top of that, when SEC starts filing lawsuits, okay, against information security officers, and SEC starts saying you will be disclosing some of the risks, cyber risks you have, suddenly it starts getting attention of the audit committee and the board. Um, you know what? We do need better education for board members. I think it's happening. There's some third parties that are doing some of the work. We are spending some time educating board members. The other move I'm seeing out there is and saying lots of boards are looking for at least one board member who is fairly educated in the topic of cybersecurity and whatnot. So this awareness is good. And I think companies are making progress in this area. The main message I have for large corporations is the following. Don't be sitting behind inertia. Hackers have no inertia. Larger companies have inertia. There's not lack of technology. There's lack of adoption. Human
Yeah.
beings like to keep on doing what they have doing, what they're comfortable with. We need to change from this traditional firewall and VPN-based security to zero trust architecture, because without the right architecture, no matter how much money you throw on old technologies, it gives you a false sense of security. It's not good. So the boards and CEOs should challenge the teams to say, are you really looking at the latest and greatest technologies, or are you sitting on the same old stuff?
Exactly. And Mark Benioff wrote a little piece in Time Magazine saying similar things, and the boards were like, "Wait a minute." So Zscaler is monitoring our person-to-person communication, our person-to-things,
Uh-huh.
but some of these agents are just doing their own thing now. A couple years out, I'm predicting
Yep.
where they're just
Mhm.
doing stuff. Your agent, Jay's agent, my agent are working on it.
Yep.
So how do we monitor that? And does that? And you're already doing trillions of monitor,
Yes.
pings now. You're going to get into quintillions at some point. And does
Mhm.
that, so A, how are you going to do it? B, how do you scale it?
Yeah. So Dean, Zscaler, when built Zero Trust Exchange, it wasn't really meant for just user two applications. It was designed to do entity A to entity B. Okay, we need to know who the entities are. For example, we do workload to workload communication securely. Can
Hmm.
workload A talk to workload B? We're doing the same thing for IoT, OT devices. My IoT device can talk to Azure Data Lake or not. Or my OT system, which is sitting in a factory, who can access an OT system? So we're in early stage of figuring out agent to agent communication based on policy. The approach we're taking is pretty solid. We're not putting policy on each agent. There are billions, there'll be billions of them.
Yeah.
But being able to say who can talk to who, sitting in line as a policy engine, inspecting things, identity and all, that's a powerful concept. I'm sure we're going to extend our technology to do the same thing for agents.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I'm not worried about you scaling it, given your name. But yeah, because if you run the algorithm, it can just melt data centers, right? Because everything
Yes.
will just keep spinning and monitoring each other, and then the agent will come up with a better piece of code to hack that cybersecurity system. Anyway, I digress. But consumers always want to know, and we always try to give them an answer on things. But should they really? Do they really? Are most consumers safe with their Android or Apple device?
The biggest risk consumers have is phishing. All these other sophisticated things that they're not going after consumers for other stuff, but phishing is something they need to be extremely careful with.
And they're trying to hook you and get you to reply to something for those that don't know what
Right.
phishing, right?
Well, they steal your credentials so they can go log onto your bank and get your money. Right.
That's been around for centuries, really.
But it's getting more and more sophisticated.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. So
Any
I think
tips for consumers?
so. First of all, it's a combination of this social engineering and this technology part of it.
Uh,
Technology is easier to fix. Social engineering is hard to fix.
behavior.
I have people, there are bad guys who are calling a Zscaler employee and saying, this is Jay Chaudhry, I want to do something. Then they hang up.
Yeah.
Then they send a text and say, I'm in a bad area, but
Happens to
I
me all
want you to
the time.
do something for me. Please buy $100
Apple gift
gift
cards.
ticket. Right,
Yeah.
gift card, right? So
Yeah, I'm hoping most corporate people have seen that one by now. But it's interesting how it can really come down to a simple matter. What about your corporate accounts? What are some of their biggest concerns in the next few years here?
yeah, my corporations are number one worried about business disruption. You've
Yeah.
seen Colonial Pipeline. The pipeline got shut down because the core billing applications data got encrypted. I mean, think of the impact it has if your business is shut down for some amount of time. We're seeing MGM issues, and Caesars issues out there. So business disruption is number one thing on their mind. It means real money, real losses. Then the data protection is second thing. There are more and more laws coming on data protection. So those are the two things they're worried about. So with that motion, if you think about Zscaler, what we do, how we do, maybe I'll give you one more analogy since you like analogies.
I like yours.
Uh, I was asked by a group of CFOs. They said, we are spending so much money on cyber and still companies are getting breached. Why is that? And explain to us in non-geeky terms. Okay. That's hard. Security and non-geeky doesn't work very often. So I came up with this metaphor. I said 4 steps to rob a bank. I got their attention. Step 1, they find all the bank branches, maybe the 500 branches out there. 2, they find the one where they can break in without getting caught. So for that, they're basically looking for a branch in a secluded area, and perhaps the surveillance camera is not working. 3, once they get in, they move laterally, they find a cache safe. 4, they run away with the cache as soon as possible. Similarly, the bad guys find your attack surface. What's your attack surface in the cyber world? It's any application, any device open to the internet. It's firewall, it's VPN, it's application portal. They find it, they find vulnerabilities too. They break in using phishing, using some of those techniques or application vulnerabilities. 3, once they're on your corporate network is like a highway system. Once I got on a highway in Highway 18 San Francisco, I can reach New York, Miami, or Dallas without hitting a single light. You know this company Maersk that got breached about 6, 7 years ago? One
Yeah.
infected machine at the headquarters. Malware traversed everywhere in
The
100 plus
container
countries.
container company.
Yes, and
Yeah.
everything was down.
Oh,
So So the lateral movement is step 3, and then they exfiltrate the data. Our job at Zscaler is to block these bad guys at each of the 4 steps. So when our customers are properly deployed, they're far safer than customers who still depend upon old school firewalls and VPNs. Customers need to move to the next level of better technologies. In cloud, you don't really do things the way you did in the data center. You need to do differently. So that's the main message I generally have for CIOs and CEOs.
the other thing I admire about you guys is the way you've scaled the company. I know you've been through rough patches, haven't we all? Anyone's
Mhm.
taken a company past $1 billion, but you do a good job at partnering, which is one of the ways we can unnaturally scale companies faster. What's your partner strategy? How's it going?
Yeah, partner strategy is very important because you look for adjacent technology areas and partnerships from the go-to market as well. We have
Not
done
every
lots of
not every CEO says that, by the way. No, they don't all get that.
right. Yes. Well, it's all about execution. We've done a lot of good work with integration with Microsoft and do go-to-market things with Microsoft. Other area, take companies like CrowdStrike that do endpoint security. We have cloud security. We're complementary. We work very closely with them. Similarly, identity companies. So it's a good thing. In the cyber world, you should never depend upon one security vendor for all security. If
Right.
that vendor gets breached, you're host. Okay. So a couple of layers of security is a good thing. That's why we always advocate don't buy endpoint security and the zero trust architecture from the same provider.
Best advice. Don't
Yes.
get hosed. So you've been at this for a while, over 10 years, and that's being polite, actually. It's much longer, but you've probably been through some what's been some of the toughest things you've been through?
You know, as I started the company, the technology we wanted to build, we had big, ambitious dreams, this cloud security that scales like nothing else out there, speed of light. My engineering team delivered actually on it. I wasn't quite sure if we'll have all the numbers my engineering promised, but very good. The challenges I had were more in the go to market area. Okay. Like most security companies, first I went through VAR channel to security operations people to sell my products. And these guys are used to having boxes, okay,
Yeah,
and liking them. They will look at me and sometimes they say, what will I do if I bought Zscaler? Okay. Then I realized that I need to go higher up and sell it at the CISO level, head of security level. And
exactly.
this was years ago. If I'm at 10 heads of security, 6 will say, Jay, you're crazy, security in the cloud. And 3 will say, good idea, but not for me, and at least not at this time. And 1 will say, wonderful idea, let's work together. At early stage, I couldn't handle more than 1 out of 10. That got us going. But there's a lot of trial and learning in the process that who do you sell to? Early on, when you bring transformational technology, your channel doesn't do much because it's so new. You have to drive, you have to build demand, and channel comes from behind. Those are some of the interesting lessons we learned, and then we refined from there.
Yeah, well, first, the product market fit. That's the first issue. You were building something before cloud was adopted heavily. They were also laughing at cloud. They're like, what?
Yes,
We're not going to put all our sales data and someone else can find it.
yes.
Uh, it's still, and there's still been some holdouts. There's many companies that are
Mhm.
still hosting their. I
Yeah,
back in our days, we had to build our own data centers, and
I know.
you look at financial services and government. There's
Mhm.
certain people that they need to lock them down. Um,
Yes.
any,
But
any,
Dean,
yeah,
the resistance is gone. 5 years ago, they used to why security in the cloud. Now everyone says I can do security in the cloud too. Enterprise resistance is gone as well. 45% of Fortune 500 companies depend upon Zscaler for this. And at the uh, global 2000 level, we got 35% presence. It's it's good to see companies moving forward. Now we got late adopters coming in and embracing that as well. My biggest risk challenge right now is legacy firewall and VPN companies are spinning their technology in the cloud as a VM, and they say, I'm Zero Trust 4.0, Zero Trust 5.0. They're kind of confusing the enterprises. And a lot of customers say, hey, this firewall company said they're Zero Trust now. It's like, I say, if you want to build Netflix and you happen to be a DVD player manufacturer, you spin a bunch of them in the cloud and say, I am Netflix. Does it really work? Not really.
Not good movies. We'll have to leave it there. But parting advice there: when someone borrows your trademark, it's usually a good thing when they when people start repeating Zero Trust. You've made it a term like let's Google it. Jay, I want to thank you for joining us today.
Dean, thank you for having me. I enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. You've been listening to Jay Chaudhry. This is Dean Tobias, the Reboot Chronicles. Check us out anywhere you get your podcasts or at rebootchronicles.com.